We're gonna make it look fly with some DIY. We're gonna make it look fly with some DIY. We're gonna make it look fly with some DIY. Uh-oh, thrift diving.
Hey, what's up? It's Serena Apia from thriftdiving.com, which is a podcast, a blog, and a YouTube channel. That really squeaked out. That helps you decorate, improve, and maintain your home using paint, power tools, and thrift stores without sacrificing your budget, the environment, or style. Welcome to episode 37. Today we are talking about 10 lessons that you must learn before you do your next room makeover. And I think most people here are not newbies when it comes to decorating a room. However, you may very well be. So today we're going to talk about the things that I've learned along the way, the 10 years we've lived in this house. What are the concrete things that I would pass on to you, someone who may or may not feel comfortable diving into a room makeover? Where do you start? Because I have my own fears. And you're probably thinking, Serena, you're afraid of a room makeover? Yes, it's overwhelming when you first get started. But there's a few things that I would tell you that are very important when you're getting started on a room makeover. And we're going to go through those in just a moment. I want to tell you that I want you to keep listening to the end because I will give you some updates on where I am with my she shed and all the amazing things that have happened this week. So I'll update you and we'll talk about that a little bit. And then also, I just want to remind you real quick, remember, I've got a power tools course. I am in the middle of creating this content, and I am so excited to get started with filming. And that's why I want to get my shed up and running, because that's where all the filming is going to happen. So if you are someone who is brand new to using power tools, maybe you know how to use one tool or two, but there's still some that you want to learn how to use, definitely go down below into the show notes, click that link, put your name, put your email, and when I'm ready to send out some information, probably early November, you are going to be the first to get the email. All right, so let's jump into this 10 lessons that you must learn. And again, I am operating here from the standpoint of if you're somebody who maybe you are intimidated by room makeovers, I want to share a little story with you first to let you know that I understand where you're coming from. Room makeovers, they're not easy. You know, we go to Pinterest, we see all these amazing spaces and we think, how in the world did they even put all that together? Well, let me start back 2010, because I was kind of like you, someone who was overwhelmed. I'm still like you, overwhelmed, but I was even more overwhelmed back in 2010 when we moved in. This is a 1970s home. It was very outdated. It was overwhelming. I knew absolutely nothing about doing a room makeover other than just tearing down the nasty wallpaper, slapping on a coat of paint, and then I just filled the room with whatever affordable furniture I could find from the thrift store, right? That's how thrift diving started. And you can find that story back in episode 1. But this method of quote unquote room makeover was more like home decorating survival mode on a budget. I really didn't think about the room. I didn't do very much other than just paint furniture, which is fine. But I feel that the goal back then, because the house was in such disarray, it was really about trying to make that home affordable and livable. And that's about it. And I think I achieved that. But now, after nearly 11 years of living here, I find that I'm going back to some of the rooms that I've already made over, right? And now I'm starting to infuse more character into these rooms. I'm starting to build things and do things that years ago it would have unnerved me. And one of the rooms that I talked about recently that I completed was my kids' bedroom. My boys, they're 15, 11, and 9. And my 15-year-old, because he's older, he's got his own room, which honestly is now in need of another makeover because it's been years now since his room was made over. But my 11-year-old and my 9-year-old, they share a bedroom. Oh gosh, those poor boys, they were laying on this king-size mattress. And while it was comfortable, it was just, the room was just kind of a mess. And there was no clear direction of whose space was what. My 11-year-old was tired of my 9-year-old throwing clothes around. So I built them some beds using these vintage headboards that I got from the thrift store. And it was really an incredible room makeover. It actually looked like an upscale dorm room, as I mentioned in a previous episode. And I started thinking about this as I was putting this room together. I was like, what are those key things that people should keep in mind when they're getting started on a room makeover? And that's what I wanted to talk about in this podcast today. So the first lesson that I would say is start with your fabrics first. If you remember, I had a conversation with the woman who owns Chair Whimsy. Her name's Wendy. And she said something that was really interesting to me. She said when she starts doing a chair makeover, she always picks the fabric first and then she chooses the paint color for the chair. She said it's much easier to pick a paint to match the fabric than it is to pick fabric to match the paint. And I thought, this is a really good rule of thumb for a room makeover, right? You might have in your mind that you really want maybe a pink accent wall, but then you've got to run all around town, check all these websites, trying to find that shade of pink, and it's very difficult. I'm not saying that you can't do that, but it's definitely a lot more stressful when you have the color picked out first, and then you have to go get everything else to match the color. Like with the kids' bedroom, with that makeover, the starting point for me was obvious. I had to start with the black because that's what the kids had requested. And as I mentioned before, they actually wanted the entire room black. That was not happening because I generally love light, bright colors. I say light and bright. When I mean light and bright, I mean like pastels. To me, that's bright. I'm not adventurous when it comes to color by any means. My house is dark also. It doesn't matter what time of day. Most of the rooms tend to be kind of dark, which I don't like. So I can't do a dark paint. But it was more stressful for me because from that black paint, I had to choose what are the accent colors. Am I going to paint the dresser with a pop of color? Am I going to blend it into the room? What kind of masculine bedding is going to go with this black accent wall? And where can I find that bedding? And I think it would have been nice if I had found the bedding first. And then I could have said, a black accent wall would have looked great with this gray. But so that's the first tip. I would say that if you can start with a fabric, whether it might be like an accent pillow for a bedroom or for a living room, or if you're doing your dining room, find the fabric for the chairs that you want to use first before you go and pick the paint color. It's just much easier to do it that way. So the second lesson that I've learned in doing room makeovers is to reuse or repurpose items from the room. This is not rocket science, and I think if you're listening to this podcast, you are somebody who loves to save money on home decor, so you probably already know this, but I can guarantee there's at least one person listening to this who thinks that when you do room makeovers, you got to go and buy new stuff. Now, when I say new stuff, let me be clear about this. I'm not saying these people want to go to the store and spend thousands of dollars. You might still want to go to the thrift store and buy all new stuff because it's a room makeover, right? You want to buy new, even if it's used, stuff. But that's not necessarily what you have to do because room makeovers, even if you're going to the thrift store, it can be expensive. And I know for myself, I don't really like to spend a lot of money on home decor. Now, when it comes to electronics, oh, honey, I will spend some money on electronics because I know that I'm not going to buy another one for at least 5 or 6 years, if possible. So I try to buy as many features and new technology that I can so that it's going to be relevant for the years to come. But when it comes to home decor, it can be inexpensive and still look great. You can reuse what you have and it can still look great. So one thing I would say is look in your room and see what are the things that you want to stay. Like, for example, you might want to use the same curtains. When I did my kids' room makeover, surprisingly, the curtains actually looked good. It kind of went very well. I mean, they were similar gray color and they had some lines or geometric patterns and it still looked good. So I was able to reuse that. Another example, right now I'm in the midst of trying to redo my husband's office. My goodness, it's so hard to do a makeover when a man is involved. I mean, come on, ladies, raise your hand. I know most of you listening to this are women, so I'm sorry, men. I am going to exclude you for this comment, but men do not want to change anything. You can give them the ugliest room and they will be so happy. They don't care as long as it's their space. That is how my husband is. So I've been trying to make over his office and this desk that's in the room, it's not a pretty desk. It's this desk that I found years ago at the thrift store. It's pretty sturdy. And my husband, this is his office. This is the desk that he uses. And you know what? I will leave a link down below because I have a blog post that I did. It's a desk that was brown, just, regular brown wood desk. And I painted it green. Did I sand it? I don't even know if I sanded it, but I know that I used primer. I used regular wall paint. And it was like a semi-gloss paint, which if you've ever painted furniture with a semi-gloss, over time, it'll start to peel away. I mean, it's like sticky. like a sticky latexy paint. And that's what has happened to this desk. I want to say that this desk has been probably in his office about 7-8 years maybe. So now that I'm doing this room makeover for him, I wanted to get him a new desk. Now, when I say new, I mean maybe take 2 file cabinets, put an old door or something, and just make him a larger desk and still be able to give him all the places to store papers and things like that he likes to do and that he needs to do for work. But he is adamantly against me getting another desk for him. He wants to use this same desk. And so I'm going to grant him that wish. I'm going to try to strip the top, and I'm only going to strip it because the paint has peeled. Let me tell you, he has used this desk for so long that not only did the green paint wear away, like right there where his arms are rubbing on the desk, the green paint was faded away. The primer has faded away, and the original stain of the desk has worn away. Guys, he has gone through 3 layers on this desk. And it looks horrendous on top. So I'm going to strip this desk. I actually might even repaint it. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do, but he wants to keep this desk. And I told him, well, it's at least going to save me money. So if there's something in your room makeover that you can reuse, you may not look at it as something that you want to reuse, right? Like you've had it for 9 years, 10 years, you just want to get rid of it and go find another thrifted desk. Try to see if you can reuse what you can. It will make things be less expensive, but you might actually really appreciate your creativity and being able to reuse the same things. Lesson number 3 that I've learned along the way is to definitely save money while you are shopping online. I really don't think there's any reason why people should be paying full price for things. I mean, come on, we know that things are inflated. Prices have gone up recently. I understand because of supply chain demands and all of that stuff. However, there are deals to get online. And if you're like me, when you get to that checkout page, there are little coupon codes there or the little field. And that reminds me, hey, I need to go look for coupon codes because obviously they exist or they wouldn't be giving me this little field to put a coupon code here. So a couple months ago, Capital One Shopping had reached out to me and wanted to sponsor something. They said, what do you have going on? And I told them I'm doing my kid's bedroom makeover. Would you like to sponsor that blog post? And they said, yes. They're not sponsoring this podcast, but I'm going to talk about them because it's in the blog post. And I do think that in the last couple months that I've been using this shopping app, that it's been working well for me. I actually have been saving some money. And as I'm looking at certain sites, I'll see the little extension pop up that says, hey, there's some coupon codes here. Do you want me to check? Or if you shop here, you can save 2% or get 2% cash rewards. So here's how it works. I'm going to explain to you how these shopping apps work because if you are someone who likes saving money online, you might like to download this, and I will leave the link down below where you can download it. I don't get earnings from that, but it does look great to them because Capital One Shopping sponsored the blog post. So here's how these shopping apps work. All right. So if you remember, and I don't know how long you've been listening or you've been following my YouTube channel, I explained how bloggers make money. And there's something called affiliate shopping, right? So let's say right now, I sent you over to, let's say, Amazon to look at, I don't know, maybe a paint sprayer. And that paint sprayer is $100. And you click on the link down below in the show notes, which there's no link there. But if you click that link and you went over to Amazon and maybe you bought that paint sprayer, but maybe you said, oh, you know what? I've been meaning to buy some cat litter, and you buy cat litter, or you buy the paint sprayer, or maybe you buy some shoes or whatever. Because I'm the one that sent you there and gave you that link and you bought something, I earn a commission. Now, it didn't cost you anything. It just paid me because Amazon, they're recognizing that I sent you and you made a purchase. So I get a little commission off of that. So these shopping apps work the same way. Not even just the shopping apps, but just think about the times when you've done searches for coupon codes, right? One of the sites that I used to love to use was Retail Me Not. I was forever looking for Papa John's coupon codes. My kids love pizza. I love pizza. And I would always find coupon codes on Retail Me Not. Sometimes they give you the code up front. Other times you could actually click to go directly to Papa John's. Now, when you click from Retail Me Not or from Capital One Shopping or from Honey, any of those deals sites, the minute you click over, they're the one who is referring you to that site. So if you make a purchase, then they get a commission. But the way that the deal sites work, like Capital One Shopping, Honey, there might be some other ones out there. Let's say they send you to Macy's.com and you buy some bedding for $100. They might get a 10% commission, but the way the shopping sites work is they'll give you 2% cash rewards, or shopping rewards, as they call them, which means instead of the 10%, they're giving you an incentive to shop with them by giving you 2% of their earnings. So it's like giving you a small kickback in order to incentivize you to continue using their link. That's how those work. Now, it's not tricky or anything like that. I actually think it's pretty clever, because that way you can save money while shopping online, and they're making money. You're saving a little bit of money. So that's just to give you an idea. If you've always wondered how those online shopping extensions work, that's how it works. And one thing that I liked about it is that with the Capital One shopping extension, even as I was ordering pizza, like I went to Papa John's one day, and before I even had to go search for a coupon code, it will pop up and say, hey, do you want us to search for coupon codes? We found some codes online. Hey, Serena, yoo-hoo. Click here if you want us to search. And I clicked the button and it just rattled off a bunch of coupon codes and found the one that was going to save me the most money. So if you're somebody who does shop online, which most of us do, whether it's for a room makeover or for other things, I will definitely tell you, look into the Capital One shopping extension. I'll leave the link down below. And if you want to download it, great. Just click that link. And I'm going to ask you to use my link. I'm not earning commission off of that. But here's the thing. When you work with a company, they give you trackable links because they want to see how many people are clicking the links that we gave to the blogger or the YouTuber. So I will ask you to click that, because to them, it's a success if they see that a lot of people had clicked and download. Now, you don't have to. I'm not telling you that. Or you can go directly to Capital One Shopping, or you can go to Honey. I'm not telling you to choose any particular one, but I would say, definitely for lesson number 3, look for one of these shopping apps that allow you to save money. That way you can, reduce your cost and get something out of it. Lesson number 4, buy what you can from the thrift store. Now, I don't think I have to drill this point home to you, because you probably already go to the thrift store, but I will tell you that there are certain things that you should look for at the thrift store. And I think if you're buying furniture for a bedroom, you want to look for something that has some weight to it, that's solid wood. Now, there's some things that you can buy that maybe it's veneer, but it may still be pretty heavy. And I think the older furniture, it's just better quality than it is now. So if you're looking to get like a whole new matching bedroom suit, you're probably not going to find that from the thrift store. But if you're looking for just individual pieces, go to the thrift store, see if you can find what you're looking for. And then if you can't, decide whether you need to buy it brand new, or if you can wait until maybe that item comes up, because you know how it is at the thrift store. I mean, you have it in your mind that you want to buy this particular thing. And sometimes the universe just conspires to make it happen. And you go and you're like, oh my gosh, that's the perfect thing I was looking for. And then other times you go and you're like, man, I haven't found anything good from the thrift store. But I would say buy what you can from the thrift store. Go there and look first. And then if you can't find what you're looking for, consider if you want to wait or go check another thrift store. For this office makeover, I've been to several places now, and I can't seem to find a desk that would be suitable for my husband. So that's why, again, I'm going to probably reuse so I can save money there. But I was looking for something that was more spacious and just a little taller. But I will tell you, if you have not been checking Facebook Marketplace, that's a great place to check, as well as the Habitat restores. Now, I know that Habitat tends to be a little bit more expensive, but I think the quality of their furniture is good. And I find that the selection is much better than just your regular thrift store. So be sure to check those places out. All right, moving on to the next tip. Tip number 5, make your own DIY chalk paint for furniture. This is a big one because if you have bought furniture paint, you know how expensive that stuff is. It's like for 1 quart, I want to say $30 maybe 20. It just depends what brand. And when I was doing my kids' room makeover, I didn't want to go buy new furniture, of course. I just reused some old nightstands that I had in my room. And eventually when I got new furniture, I ended up finding some thrift. Now, when I say new, the bed is new, but the nightstands were not new. I found them at Community Forklift. If you live in Maryland, by the way, right outside of College Park, there is this amazing salvage spot. It's like a thrift store / salvage spot. It's called Community Forklift. You have to check it out. It's amazing. But anyway, I found a couple of nightstands there, and the old ones, the IKEA ones we've had for years, those went to the kids. And I could have tried to find the specific gold color of, chalk paint that I wanted to paint these. But if I did that, it probably would have been pretty expensive. So here's what I would recommend. And for those of you who like to paint furniture, who is used to buying the expensive, paint, I would say consider buying the paint additive. It's called now I could be mispronouncing this, Frosh or Frosh. I don't know, but I'm going to call it Frosh. But it's called BB Frosh, and it's a paint additive that will turn your regular wall paint, and they usually recommend flat or satin finish. It'll turn it into a chalk paint that sticks very well to furniture. I've used it twice now. I used it actually 3 times. I will leave a link down below. There is the powder room makeover that I did several years ago. I painted that vanity with a regular wall paint, and I mixed it with the paint additive. It's been years and it still has not chipped, which is amazing. I don't even know if I think I used wax over top of it, but it's still in pretty good condition. And then something in my garage, like one of the workbenches, I painted it using the BB Frosh and just, regular wall paint from the paint department. Then, of course, the kids' nightstands. So I just went to Home Depot. I bought one of the sample pots of paint, which was like $4. And then I mixed in some of the BB Frosh, and I was able to do both of the nightstands with that one little container. I should have bought 2 because it got to the point where I was like mixing a little bit of water in, trying to extend it, like, please don't run out before I'm done painting these. But I would definitely say to save yourself some money when you're doing some of these makeovers, especially on smaller pieces, buy yourself some just regular wall paint, flat or satin finish, and use the paint additive. I will leave a link down below. It probably will be an affiliate link, of course, because we just went through that. But it works really well. The paint additive is a little expensive, but when you consider how many containers of paint that you can mix, it's not that expensive. Lesson number 6 I've learned along the way is to use complementary color cards. Listen, I don't consider myself to be a designer at all. I really don't. I mean, the room makeovers that I do, they end up looking pretty good, but I wouldn't consider them to be anything that I would see in HGTV magazine. I mean, for me, it's good enough. It's comfortable. It looks much better than what the before looked like. But when it comes to mixing colors and patterns, like that's not really me. I just like to make ugly things look pretty. And sometimes pretty is just a nice coat of white with some pink pastel. I mean, let's just be clear here. But I think that when people like myself, when they want something that goes a little bit better with some different colors that work well together, that's where those color cards, those combination cards really come in handy. And I think the store that does it the best, in my opinion, I haven't been to all of them, but I think the store that does the best is Sherwin-Williams. So what I'll do is I'll go in there and look at their color cards, and sometimes they'll have like 20 different collections. I wish I could remember the name of the color collection. It used to be HGTV Home, but I think they changed it up some number of years ago. They're color cards that have literally like 20 colors, and you can mix and match any of those colors together, and it just always looks good. So when I knew that the kids they wanted a black accent wall, I said, okay, let me go and I'll get a black paint from Sherwin-Williams, which is what I did. The black paint that I used is called Black Magic. And in that color card, there was this beautiful gold color. And I had already been inspired when I went to Home Goods. I walked in and they had all their fall pillows out, and I saw these gold, really soft pillows. And I said, oh, that's the color that I want to mix with the black. So once I had that pillow, then when I went to Sherwin-Williams, it wasn't hard for me to look at that card and say, oh, here's the perfect gold. I'll choose that color. And sure enough, it looks great. I will leave a link down below to the kids' bedroom makeover and to the blog post that goes with this. But it looked great together, and I didn't have to search all over Pinterest and, get confused as to what was going to look good. And surprisingly, the bedding that I got from Macy's actually had that yellow in it. So it all looked good. It all looked like I knew what I was doing. When really all I did was look at the color card and I'm like, oh, okay, well, this will look good together. So let the companies do the hard work for you and use their color combinations so that you don't necessarily have to drive yourself crazy. So that would be tip number 6. Tip number 7 is to make your own artwork. Let me tell you, I think artwork should be personal. I have never understood people going into, like, let's say IKEA and seeing a pile of 10,000 copies of the same piece of art and then just bringing that home. Like, no, like, why? Why would you do that? I much prefer to use family photos, and I like to do things that really represent something that's meaningful to the person and who's going to be using that room, or to the family. So for me, for my kids' room, I actually had used my Cricut. I love using my Cricut to do vinyl and stuff. So I had a frame just laying around, and I painted, first I had to cut out a piece of wood to fit inside the frame. I think it was like 11 by 14, painted it white. And then I used my Cricut to cut out a vinyl piece that looked like the shape of Africa, right? The continent of Africa. And so I put that on there and then put it in the frame, and it looks fantastic. So, my family, if you didn't know, my husband's from Ghana. So we are a Ghanaian American family. And I wanted the boys' room to represent something that was personal to them. So don't be afraid to make your own artwork. Take some pictures. Like, let's say it's spring and you're doing a room makeover or maybe a bathroom makeover. Take your phone and go walk around the neighborhood and find some beautiful flowers that always grabs your attention, and then just print them out. You can easily print them out with Snapfish or Shutterfly, or go to Walgreens and upload it and go pick it up same day. If it's a really nice picture, you could even do like a 16 by 20. And then those frames, I find they're pretty easy to find at the thrift store for maybe $5 or something. And there you go. You've got instant wall art using your own photography. So that's what I love. All right, moving on to tip number 8. Oh, before I move on to tip number 8, I will tell you, and this is in the blog post, that I love the idea of taking some of your favorite fabric and get a frame, of course, from the thrift store. And you can either mount it on a piece of wood. So if you can use tools, you can cut out a piece of like 1/4-inch plywood, or you can use, and this is what my mom did, a piece of cardboard, and use some spray adhesive and attach that fabric to either the cardboard or the plywood, and then frame your fabric. It looks so good. There's a piece of fabric that I found. It looks like watercolors, like flowers. It's beautiful. You can't even find it online. I don't think you can even find it online. It's a local store. What is it called? G Street Fabrics. If you live in Rockville, Maryland, there's a G Street Fabrics, and they sell, some of their fabrics are not that wonderful, but every now and then they have a winner. So I'd found this fabric. It was very expensive. So I just got a little piece. I think I used it for another project, but I had some left over and I framed it, and it looks fabulous in my bedroom. I've had it up for maybe 2 years now because it just looks so amazing. Colors are perfect. So do that. Use fabric and frames from the thrift store and make it affordable. Don't go out and spend lots on frames that everybody else and their mama has bought from IKEA. Okay, lesson number 8, don't be afraid to go bold. And as I mentioned before, I love pastel rooms. I know they can be very boring, but every now and then, especially if I'm doing a room makeover for somebody in my house, like the kids, I do like to go a little bold because I know it's not a room that I'm going to be in all the time. So for me, the black accent wall was bold. Even for my oldest son, several years ago, I think he might have been 9, 10. It's been a while. His room is ready for another makeover, but I used a deep blue to do an accent wall in his room. And that was amazing because I'd never done a dark color like that before, and I was just a little worried. But I think if you are someone like me that's kind of afraid of color, don't be afraid to dip your toe into a color or a design you're not quite sure of, because then if you don't like it, you can always just paint over it. And of course, if you're painting over a dark wall, you want to use a primer and then go over it with a lighter color paint. But I would say to try some unexpected deep colors that you thought maybe you'd want to try, but a whole room would be overwhelming. And see if you could do one wall, an accent wall, maybe like a wall that has a window, or if it's in a family room, maybe the wall that has your fireplace there, or maybe that picture window that you love, that bay window. And then if you don't like it, just go over it and start all over again. There's no harm in that if it's just paint. The only thing you do waste a little bit of money, because I can tell you Home Depot does not take paint back. And if you've used most of it, nobody's going to take that back. But give it a try. Don't be afraid to go bold, because sometimes you may surprise yourself. All right, lesson number 9, I would say to choose a style that's going to be relevant for at least a few years. Now, as I mentioned, my oldest son, he's 15. And I think it's been several years, like I mentioned, 5 years since I had done his room makeover. So you have to think, if you're doing a room makeover, you want that room makeover really to be relevant for the next few years. This isn't something you're going to want to change again in the next year or 2 years. That can get expensive. And if you're doing a room that has, let's say, some sort of trend that people are doing, and yeah, it kind of goes out of style next year, and you're like, why did I ever decide to do this? You don't want to have to change your mind and do a whole new room makeover a year from now. So I would say choose a style that is going to be relevant for at least a few years, or a style that you love. So even if it's not relevant, if you still love it, that'll be great. Make sure that you're going to love it for the next 3 years, so you're not having to redo the same room over and over and wasting your time. So that's one thing that I've learned. And then the last thing is to layer your rugs. Now, I love shag rugs. I think they're so cozy. I don't even know if they're in style, to be honest with you. I never really pay any attention to what's in style. I pay attention to what I like. And I love shag rugs. They just feel cozy and warm underneath your feet. And sometimes you can't really find the size rug that you're looking for. So don't be afraid to layer your rugs, to even put them side by side to make a larger footprint in the room. The only thing you have to be careful of with that is when you do lay them side by side, maybe you might want to put some sort of tape underneath if it's on a bare floor, or you might have to keep coming back and shuffling them back together so they look like one rug. But don't be afraid to add some other kind of rugs over top of the main carpet if you have carpet in your house, or maybe an area rug. For example, Costco, this was 6 months ago, some time ago, Costco had these amazing faux bearskin rugs. Oh, so amazing, beautiful. I mean, just like this gorgeous creamy white color. It was like the softest rug that I've ever felt. And they were kind of big too. I want to say they might have been 6 feet by 3. I mean, it was a pretty big rug, and I loved them so much. I bought 3 of them. They were $60. I was like, I didn't plan on buying rugs today, but they were so comfy and cozy. And you know how it is with Costco. Costco's like the thrift store. If you don't buy it today, next time you go back, guess what? It's not going to be there. So when you find something you love, you got to buy multiples. At least that's what I've been doing recently. And so in the kids' bedroom, they've got a rug in their room, like an area rug. But if you layer the rugs, and like I did with this bearskin rug, it just makes the room feel so much more cozy. So don't be afraid to just layer your rugs and add a little bit of coziness around the home. All right, so here's my bonus tip. I definitely think that you need to take lots of before pictures, and not just before pictures, after pictures too, because what I've learned in the last 11 years that I've lived here, there is nothing more jaw-dropping than looking at pictures of what your house looked like when you first moved in. It's sort of like when you find those pictures of yourself from your teenage years or your early 20s, and you're like, what in the world was I thinking with that hairstyle? You will look back on the wallpaper that you chose, or maybe the pumpkin orange living room that you thought was so cool, and now it's completely different from anything that you ever would choose for yourself. And the thing is, you forget that your home looked like that. Recently, I was going through some of my old external hard drives, and I found these pictures of what our front yard, well, okay, let me say it's not the front yard, it's more like the side yard. When we moved in, the previous owners had, I guess you could say it was a garden. I mean, there was mulch over there and there was lots of plants, but we had no knowledge of any kind of gardening, landscaping skills. We had none, absolutely none. We were coming from a 2-bedroom condo. We'd never lived in a single family home like that required upkeeping. So it just grew into this massive overgrown garden that just, it was horrible. And so I found these pictures of what it looked like, and I just started laughing. I called my husband. I'm like, you have to come see this. This is what our home, do you remember it? Because it's sort of like your kids, right? When you look at your kids or your grandkids or whoever, they just look like who they look like now. You forget what they look like when they were 4 and, standing there with their arms held out to you like, mommy, mommy. You just forget until you see that picture and you're like, wow, oh my God. So I look at pictures. I have a folder on my external hard drives. And so as my house changes, I dump a lot of the before and after pictures into those folders. And it's fun to go back and look and even to show the kids and say, hey guys, look, do you remember your bathroom looked like this? Look at your toilet that smelled like pee. It's just, so I would say before you do a room makeover, just take lots of before pictures. And when you're done that room makeover, take pictures, take the after pictures and then store them somewhere. And I would even tell you, print them out, put them in an album. This is what I keep meaning to do. Put them in an album, and they are so much fun to look at, especially when you have guests that come over, because I love talking about my house. When people come over, they'll say, oh, I like this room, or I like how you did that. And then I'm like, well, let me show you what it used to look like. And then I'll run and grab my iPad or whatever. But it would be great to have it in an album. I mean, if people still print pictures out, something that you can go back and say, hey, look at all this work that I did. Look at that. It's a fun conversation. And it's just a visual reminder of how far your home has really grown with your family. All right. So I really enjoyed this podcast today. I don't know about you, but I enjoyed this so much because room makeovers are challenging. But once you get started and you kind of have a vision for where you're going, it's so much fun. Like when you get that paint on the wall and that color and you start seeing how beautiful it's looking, like, I just love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm hoping that maybe after listening to this, you are inspired to tackle a room in your house. Because like I said, right now I'm working on my husband's office. Yesterday, I got the walls painted. And now that that's done, I feel like I'm over that hump and I'm ready to move forward with figuring out, okay, let's get this desk together. If you want to reuse it, let's pull it together. I do also want to update you on what happened with the shed this week. I did promise you an update on that. So my professor had come, and if you remember, I mentioned in my video, if you don't follow me on YouTube, go over there and watch my latest video. I will leave a link down below. I had gotten some quotes in order to wire my shed, and actually, I've gotten 2 quotes, and both of them are astronomical. One guy said $8,500, the other one said $7,500, which is insane. So the update is my teacher has since come, and he said, look, Serena, I do think that you're going to be able to wire this yourself, and I'll do all the connections to the sub panel, but you can do the inside, I'll do the outside. So that was pretty exciting. And this week I have been so pumped to get started with this wiring. I've been watching YouTube videos and reminding myself of some of these key things that I learned in electrical wiring that, it's been a year since I've learned anything about wiring. And so watching the videos have been a refresher. And so I'm getting excited. I just cannot wait. So that is going to be coming up soon. We are going to be wiring the shed. So if you're not following me on YouTube, definitely make sure you follow along there. And also Instagram at Thrift Diving, because I'll show behind the scenes of what's going on with that. But that's coming up. And I don't think there's any more updates for you in regards to the shed, but I am going to be sharing everything on my channel. So you don't want to miss anything. Be sure to subscribe over there. And yeah, next week, I don't know what we're talking about next week. I think it's just going to be whatever comes up during the week. For the next episode, episode 38, we're getting close to 50. Be sure to have a wonderful week, and I will see you next episode.